Chapter 5. Aliens ate my homework. My volcano! I cried in dismay. What have you done to my volcano? Actually, I didn't need to ask. I could see for myself. They had carved a huge pit in the front of it. I knew the aliens had done it because Gracker was using his ray gun to slice out another chunk even as I watched. There were 5 of them now. Gracker, Madame Pong, and 3 new ones, all of them on or near the volcano. When the piece Gracker was working on came free, he passed it behind him to one of the new guys, a purple-brown creature who looked a little like a lizard in a blue cape. This guy dumped it into a big metal box that had a spout on one end. He was chanting nonsense syllables to himself as he worked. Madame Pong stood above the pit, close to the top of the volcano, looking worried. Floating next to her was a potted plant that was slightly taller than she was. As near as I could tell, the plant was held up by little rockets mounted on the bottom of his pot. It had an enormous orange and yellow blossom, at least enormous for a plant that was only a couple of inches tall. The blossom pointed slightly downward. A strange glow shone from behind the long petals. The 5th alien stood on the control panel of another metal box. It had a body that was shaped something like a lemon. From the body came 4 legs, 2 arms, and a neck that was even longer than the arms. At the end of that long neck was a head that made me think of a turtle with bug eyes. This alien was using one hand to punch buttons on the control panel. In the other hand, it held a big chunk of my volcano. As I watched, it raised the chunk to its mouth and took a bite. It was eating my science project. Stop! I cried. What do you think you're doing?
I have commandeered this structure for use by the Galactic Patrol, said Gracker as he sliced off another chunk of volcano. We require some convertible mass for energy purposes, and this material was the most suitable we could find. The molecular structure seems already to have been reduced to a simple level, which saves us a great deal of trouble.
Besides, added the bug-eyed turtle, taking another bite,
the taste is most excellent, and it has much to nourish a warrior.
I don't care if it's vitamin enriched. That's my science project. I have to take it to school in 2 days.
Gracker narrowed his eyes. Are you claiming your project is more important than interplanetary justice? He asked.
The lizard guy, the one who had been chanting, put his hand on Gracker's arm. Careful, my captain, he whispered. Gracker shook his hand away.
Are you saying this project is more important than the capture of a deadly criminal?
At the moment, I felt exactly that way. However, I knew that yes was not the answer Gracker had in mind. But my volcano, I stammered. Rod, there are bigger things at stake here than your homework, said Madame Pong softly. Right now, I would be happier if we were bigger, said the plant. I blinked. Did that thing just talk? No, it was the wind rustling through my leaves. How do you do that? I cried. You don't even have a mouth. I immediately wondered if that was true. Who knew what might have been hidden by those petals? Of course I don't have a mouth, said the plant. And how do you talk? Pod burps. Beg your pardon? Uncurling one of its dozens of tendrils, the plant pulled aside a leaf. With another tendril, it pointed to a dark green pod hanging from one of its internal stems. I suck air into the pod, then use it to burp out a sound. Consider that a loose translation, added Madame Pong, a furrow wrinkling her high yellow brow. Burp is probably not the most precise word. However, your language has no closer analogy for the process. But it's a plant, I said, none too intelligently. And you're me, replied the plant. Amazing that you can think at all, isn't it? It paused, then waved several tendrils and added, or can you? Great. This alien plant not only talks, it's a wise guy.
Where have you been, anyway? asked Gracker. I don't recall giving you permission to leave the area.
I had about had it. You're not my boss, I snapped.
I am for the time being, said Gracker.
Suddenly, he narrowed his eyes, which meant that they nearly disappeared under that great beetling brow of his. Turning his ray gun from the volcano toward me, he said,
You didn't tell anyone about us, did you?
I've heard that things which happen early in your life can have a deep effect on you. I suppose that's why I can't lie. It happened when I was about 3, which was back when my dad still lived with us. Mum had made some of her special chocolate cookies. I loved these cookies. Well, actually, I never met a cookie I didn't like, which is one reason I am pudgier than I would like to be. But these were Mum's speciality, and I loved them, despite the fact that they were kind of dry and could suck the moisture out of your mouth quicker than a sponge. Anyway, I had asked if I could have one, and Mum had said no. I had decided I wanted one anyway. Remember, I was only 3 years old. So I snuck into the kitchen, took a chair from the table, and used it to climb onto the counter. Then I crawled over to the cookie jar, opened the top, and took out one of the chocolate treasures I had been longing for. Suddenly, I heard my mother coming. I started to crawl back along the counter, not fast enough. She was going to enter the kitchen before I could get away. I would be caught, chocolate-handed, so to speak. I did the only thing I could think of to get rid of the evidence. I crammed the entire cookie into my mouth. When my mother walked into the kitchen, she found me crawling along the counter, eyes wide, cheeks bulging. It didn't take Sherlock Holmes to see what I had been doing. "Rod," she asked softly, "do you have a cookie in your mouth?" Do you know what I did? I denied it. Right in front of her, with my mouth full of cookie, I said, "No." At least, I tried to. But remember, these cookies were real saliva suckers. My mouth was drier than a 3-day-old peanut butter sandwich. When I tried to say, "No, I don't have a cookie in my mouth," what came out was a spray of chocolate crumbs and the words, Under the circumstances, it was unlikely Mum was going to believe me. I was made to stand in a chair facing the wall for half an hour. Mum stressed that the reason she was punishing me was not so much that I'd taken the cookie, but that I had lied to her. That was the last time I ever lied. As I said, things that happen to you early on tend to have a deep effect. It wasn't just that I didn't want to lie, or that I thought it was wrong. I just plain couldn't do it. If someone looked at me and asked me a direct question, they got the truth. However, most people asking me questions I did not want to answer were not also pointing ray guns at my head. The situation at the moment was something different than I had ever faced before.
"Well,"
growled Gracker,
"did you tell anyone about us?"
I swallowed hard. My mouth was as dry as cotton. I could almost taste that old chocolate cookie. "Yes," I said unhappily. "I told someone." "Gracker!" cried Madame Pong. "Don't!" She was too late. He raised his ray gun, pointed at me, and fired.